we consider that a good legislation should look like the French duty of vigilance, because it's the first legislation that really addresses corporate impunity. And why? Because we have seen that some of the flaws in the other legislation are, for example, that they are either too much narrow or specific on some issues or on some rights. They are also like ticking box exercise rather than emphasis on what companies should be doing and taking action. Also, most of the legislation are lacking enforcement mechanism as well as a sanction mechanism. So all of this should be included in legislation. And also, taking from the experience of the French duty of vigilance, we really need to introduce an enforceable legislation at the EU level, which we would call duty of care, for example. And that would cover all human rights and not specific rights, so whole human rights as well as the environment. It should address also all companies, not only big ones. And if we have an obligation of means, that answer the question of should be no too much weight on the SMEs, because there would be an obligation of means. And then an obligation to prevent, mitigate, and account for human rights as well as environmental rights. That should really be included. And then liability and access to justice mechanism within the legislation. So there is really now a need for an EU legislation that would encompass all of these criteria.